My parents invalidated my feelings. I grew up constantly being dismissed or corrected. I was never good enough. Whatever I do is never enough for my mother. My flaws were always pointed out. My self-worth was in the never a single compliment. Will I ever be good enough? Why is it never enough? I'm never good enough for my parents. I'm sick of not being good enough. Have you ever felt like a fraud or like you don't deserve the things that you've accomplished in your life? For a lot of us, our parents might be the cause of that, but why though? We're gonna go through a couple Reddit stories to find out how our parents gave us imposter syndrome. Starting with never satisfied, never good enough. Anyone have any examples of the most ridiculous things your narcissistic parents would say wasn't good enough? I have always told my mom I hate how overly critical she is. That no matter what I do or how I do it, it isn't right. Every chore I was given, somehow I did wrong. Every task, not good enough. And things I decided to do for myself or for my mother was never good enough either. For example, I made her breakfast in bed once and she complained how the apples were sliced and how now there were too many dishes for her to do and have so much to clean up. Even though I had full intention on doing those things, but I could never do them because I never did them right. I'm 18 years old and still don't have my driver's license because I never drove right. I just learned how to do my laundry for my boyfriend because my mother always said I did it wrong and not accordingly, so she just did it for me. Same thing for cooking, shopping, cleaning, learning. Anything and everything was wrong. She prevented me from learning how to do such important, simple tasks simply because I wouldn't do it good enough. You know, the crazy thing about imposter syndrome is that it's a lie that came from somewhere though. For example, imposter syndrome doesn't just come out of nowhere. You're not just gonna believe you're inadequate or you're not worthy of your successes without outside help. But what is helping you believe this though? Lots of things actually, but over criticism from your parents definitely don't help. As a child or adolescent, criticism or correction from our parents is a natural part of our upbringing. Discipline, done properly, is necessary for us to grow into responsible adults. Where the problem lies, however, is when this criticism becomes weaponized against us, where it becomes too frequent for it to be justifiable and over-exaggerated over things that literally does not matter, but are disguised as tough love and I'm only harsh on you because I want you to be better, when in reality, in the mind of a narcissist, it's all about control. You have any idea what it's like to have a parent, you know, someone that you're meant to look up to look to for safety and guidance, constantly judge, helicopter, and criticize every little thing that you do? It's like you're living your life under a microscope and everything you do is a mistake. Exhausting ain't even the word. Ugh, you look absolutely disgusting. Take those clothes off and wear this instead. Really? Only a 95? What happened to the other 5 points? You always fall short and you never take your education seriously. Oh, you got into a state university? Well, the neighbor's son made it to an Ivy League. Why can't you be smart and try harder for once? Ugh. You're fat. If you're the child of a narcissist, you weren't allowed to form your own opinions, express your own thoughts, and you always fell short of your parents' expectations. They do this to keep you under their thumb, so to speak. If you constantly feel that you're never good enough, you'll always try harder to seek their approval, completely unaware that it'll never come no matter how hard you try. They'll tell you it's constructive feedback or they're doing it for your benefit, when in reality, there's no benefit to be had to being scrutinized over every little thing. As we grow into adults, this constant scrutiny instills a fear of failure, an overfixation on every mistake we could make. We hesitate to take risks or celebrate the moments when we do win because we're fearful others may see just how flawed we are. This constant demand for perfection creates adults who set unrealistically high standards for themselves, and they're more likely to dismiss any achievement they accomplish as lucky or a one-time fluke if it does not meet their impossible self-imposed idea of success. So even when we do succeed, we may still internalize our parents' critical voices and question whether or not what we accomplished was actually worthwhile. Oh, I just got a promotion at my job. But my mom would have asked me what took me so long. Besides, it's not that big a deal, I suppose. With how much of a screw up I am, I must have only got it because I was lucky. Which leads us to the next story. Growing up, I thought love from parents is supposed to be conditional. My parents are emotionally immature and very neglectful. My dad always wanted me to study hard, and almost all of our conversations were about my studies and school. When I would get sick, he would get upset that I couldn't study. It made me tie my worth to my academic achievements, and it made me feel so worthless when I was taking a break and not being productive, or wasting my time, as my dad would say. It made me think that if I got bad grades or I wasn't studying hard enough, he won't love me anymore. I always thought that love was conditional and that nobody would love me simply for who I am. I am honestly in disbelief. How can someone love me for simply who I am? I have to prove my worth to this person and show that I'm not a waste of time and space. One of the most toxic things a parent can do is withhold love from their child until they meet specific expectations. As a child, we yearn for genuine affection from our parents. It's not just a desire, but a psychological need. It fosters proper emotional security, safety, self-esteem, cognitive development, and it just overall feels nice. You know what I mean? So to hold such a need behind a wall that can only be unlocked once the child meets some achievement literally stunts their development and teaches them that affection should always be earned and never freely given, which is not the case. There is a balance though, as in the case in the Reddit story. Of course, there's an innate desire within parents to want their children to do better, especially in academics. And this is not an excuse to not expect the best out of your kids, but holding affection hostage teaches them that love should be seen as transactional, which chips away at our self-worth, creating a connection in our brains that believes achievements are only currency for validation. The narcissistic parent, unfortunately, couldn't care less, however. Parents who suffer from narcissistic traits view their children as an extension of themselves and often prioritize their own needs at the expense of their kids. They seek validation through their child's achievements, literally treating your wins as if they accomplished it themselves. Thus, this creates a toxic dynamic where the child's individuality is overshadowed by the parents' grandiose self-image and selfish desires. As a result, this fosters a sense of imposter syndrome in us as adults because now we've grown accustomed to seeking outside approval. We've been trained to become reliant on external validation to feel worthy, using it as a crutch, and begin to doubt our abilities if we don't get it. And you want to know what's worse? When you do something you thought will make your parents proud, and they still don't give you the love that you're looking for. Have you ever had a parent skip out on your graduation? And even if they did show up, they did so begrudgingly and made it very clear that they did not want to be there, as in they're literally there out of societal obligation and nothing else. Why would I attend your high school graduation? That's nothing to celebrate. What, graduating is what you're supposed to be doing? What, you want a cookie for doing something anyone can do? Ugh, these seats are so uncomfortable and this ceremony is taking forever. I can't believe she has me sitting here for this nonsense. Just take the diploma so we can leave. College graduation? What's the difference between that and high school? I'm not going through that stupidness again. Talk to me when you do something actually important like get a good job. Comments like this can communicate to children that my parents' comfort is much more important than my success. This belief causes a battle on our minds on two fronts. On the one side, it's, number one, I can only receive love if I earn it. I must accomplish something great in order to get affection. And on the other side, it's, number two, the things I accomplish are things I should be doing anyways, so they're not worthy of attention and love. Do you see the problem here? So, as an adult, whenever a friend or partner shows you love without you having to earn it first, you begin to feel like a fraud because you didn't do anything to deserve this. Why are you telling me that you love me? I didn't do anything. What do you mean, babe? You don't have to do something for me to say that I love you. That's probably a conversation a lot of people who struggle with imposter syndrome as a result of conditional love probably have had. Which brings us to our last story. Does anybody else feel like they had no identity growing up? I'm 20 and I've dealt with my narcissistic parents' toxicity my whole life. They infantilized me and parentified me at the same time. I've only recently came to the realization that I had no identity growing up. My parents literally used me as if I were a human robot. I'd fix things, clean things, fill out paperwork for them, and be the mediator when they'd be at it. But outside of that, they never spent time with me or even bothered to take me out the house much. They only acknowledged my existence when they needed needed something or when they wanted to prove that they're good parents to someone else. When I just wanted to be a kid, you know, like run around, laugh, listen to music, sing, dance, simple stuff like that, I was always told I was being too loud or too hyper. When I expressed my feelings or showed any emotions, I was always shot down immediately. They never tried to see or hear me. Ever. Everything was always about how they felt and what they believed was right. I always had to cater to their feelings, but could never question anything they'd say or do without being called some variation of ungrateful or spoiled. I felt like I had to walk on eggshells every time they'd be around just so I could keep the peace and so they wouldn't yell at me or blame me for something. I didn't even know myself. I didn't even know what kind of music I liked. I had no personal style. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I had no aspirations or goals. I felt like nothing essentially. Overextending myself was all I knew. I'd just morph into whatever I thought my narcissistic parents and other people wanted me to be in the moment without even realizing it. I felt like an empty shell, but at that time, I didn't fully understand why. Boundaries to a narcissistic parent, they don't exist. In the mind of a narcissistic parent, they view you as their reflection. Your mistakes are seen as mistakes on their end. Your flaws are seen as flaws on them as well, and their selfish ego will not allow that to happen. Have you ever felt like you're just living in your parent's shadow? Not in the sense like they're doing better than you in some way, but in the sense that you weren't allowed to do the things that you actually wanted to do in life, all in the name of pleasing them. You wanted to go to a state college because they had the best program that you were looking for the major you desired, but your narcissistic parent, they want you to go to an Ivy League. Why? Because it made them look better. Oh, you're passionate about architecture? Go to med school. Why? Because that's what your mom wanted. You try to fight back, maybe even set a strong boundary of some kind, maybe make it clear that it's your life and you want to do things that make you happy, only for the manipulation tactics to begin. All of a sudden, you're ungrateful. Somehow you're spoiled. Somehow you don't help around the house. Oh, you should be happy for all the things that we've done for you, although they're also legally obligated. Oh, this is your way of paying us back. It's like you're in a constant battle trying to balance pleasing your parents while also trying to do things that you kind of want to do. You might have also learned that the only way to avoid conflict was just to go with what your parents say. And they reward your compliance by not yelling and lashing out at you or being uncontrollably angry at you, which does work in the short term actually, but you're also being trained that obedience is more important than individuality. Sorry. Basically, your parents are teaching you that you're only lovable when you're agreeable and when you do other things that other people tell you to do. You learn to suppress your original desires out of survival. The only problem is though, now as an adult, you are in a constant battle of trying to figure out what you actually want out of life. You likely have trouble knowing the difference between what's your desire versus the desires and thoughts that your parents programmed into you. Now you're pursuing a goal that you're unsure about, and these feelings of uncertainty feed into that feeling of, now I'm a fraud. I think the thing that sucks most about imposter syndrome is the feeling that something you accomplished didn't actually come from you. Although you factually know that you obviously did it, but it just doesn't feel like you did. Or the feeling like you don't belong in certain circles or higher positions in life because you feel out of place. When you feel like your identity isn't your own, that's when those feelings kick in. And if you have the unfortunate pleasure of dealing with parents like this, that's where a chunk of your imposter syndrome likely came from. And that brings me to my last point. Your parents probably aren't the only reason why you have imposter syndrome. Just want to make that clear. Now, if you relate to any of these stories, they're likely part of the reason, but I'm sure there are other factors as well. And the whole point of this video was to show it from this perspective. And if you've noticed, I haven't shared a single solution as to how to solve imposter syndrome. Reason being is because I don't know you. I feel like with mental health and with trauma, it's a case-by-case basis. I'm of the opinion that half the battle is figuring out how or why something came to be. Literally, if you were to sit down with a therapist, that's probably what a lot of the session is going to be anyway. I'm not saying that this video is going to solve that either, but if it could at least put you on a path to connect some dots, I think it's done its job. But everything is a case-by-case basis, and I just really want to make sure that you guys are well. The whole point was to not only help you guys out, but to help myself. I also have imposter syndrome, and if you happen to have a solution, please share in the comments so I can also learn as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. How do I usually end these things? I guess obligatory ending shot.